It was supposed to be a day of celebration. For years, viewers across the UK have welcomed Ben Shephard into their homes. Whether it was his reassuring voice on Good Morning Britain, his light-hearted charm on Tipping Point, or his compassion with contestants on Ninja Warrior UK, Ben had built a reputation not just as a presenter, but as one of television's true gentlemen. Warm, steady, and endlessly polite, he carried himself with a humility that set him apart from so many of his peers. So when his birthday came around, it seemed only fitting that family, friends, and colleagues were eager to mark the occasion. But what was meant to be a joyful gathering quickly turned into something that no one, least of all Ben himself, could have imagined. Instead of blowing out candles and making a quiet wish surrounded by Annie and their 2 sons, Ben suddenly found himself swept up in a drama that felt too surreal to be true. Eyewitnesses would later describe the moment as unthinkable and utterly bizarre. In a matter of minutes, news alerts were flashing across phones, trending hashtags began dominating social media, and broadcasters scrambled to update their evening bulletins. The headlines? Ben Shephard had reportedly been taken into custody, and the timing, on his birthday, was a twist that shocked the nation. The very thought of Ben Shephard, a man whose career has been built on kindness and professionalism, facing such a humiliating ordeal left the public reeling. On Twitter, disbelief spread faster than the facts. Ben Shephard? No way, not him. This must be a mistake. Why on his birthday? This feels cruel. Within minutes, the frenzy had reached boiling point. Facebook feeds overflowed with speculation. WhatsApp groups buzzed with theories. News outlets battled to outpace each other with updates, each one feeding into the storm of confusion. And through it all, one image began to dominate. Ben, usually so calm, composed, and reassuring, appearing visibly stunned as officials escorted him away. His body language seemed to say it all. He was as shocked as the rest of us. The timing was almost too symbolic to ignore. Birthdays are markers of joy, reflection, and renewal. But now this milestone would forever be remembered not for laughter, but for headlines. Yet as the media swirled around Ben, it was Annie Shephard who became the quiet center of the storm. For decades, Annie has been the constant in Ben's life. Unlike her husband, she has largely chosen to remain out of the spotlight. A successful professional in her own right, she has always valued privacy, shielding their family from the glare that so often consumes those connected to public figures. But in this moment, privacy was a luxury she no longer had. Reports from those closest to the family described Annie's reaction as a mixture of heartbreak and resolve. She was, by turns, visibly shaken and fiercely protective. Friends recalled moments where her composure cracked, her eyes brimming with tears as she struggled to comprehend the enormity of what was unfolding. And yet, within hours, she found her strength. Annie, who has been Ben's partner since their teenage years, was not about to let the man she loved be reduced to a tabloid headline. Those who know her well say it was almost instinctive, the shift from shock to determination. She was devastated, yes, but if you know Annie, you'll know she's also incredibly strong. Once the initial tears passed, she looked like a woman on a mission. Annie did what she has always done. She stood firmly by Ben's side. In a rare public statement, her voice thick with emotion, yet clear with conviction, she said, "This is not who Ben is. This is not what he stands for. I know my husband better than anyone, and I will not let speculation or half-truths define him." The words cut through the noise. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a beloved TV presenter facing questions. It was about a family, a marriage, a wife standing tall in the face of chaos, refusing to allow her husband's character to be questioned without a fight. And if there's one thing viewers across the UK love, it's loyalty. Annie's reaction struck a chord with millions who saw her not only as Ben's wife, but as his fiercest defender. At the time, the details remained frustratingly vague. What were the charges? Why on his birthday? Was this a case of mistaken identity, a misunderstanding blown into proportion, or something deeper? The lack of clarity only added to the sense of unease. For every article attempting to provide context, there were 3 more fanning speculation. For every voice calling for patience, there were dozens more demanding answers immediately. And yet through it all, Annie urged restraint. The truth will come out, she told friends privately, and when it does, Ben's name will be cleared. Behind closed doors, however, the situation was far from easy. Their 2 sons, who had grown up with their father's familiar face on TV, but had always been shielded from the harshest realities of fame, now found themselves in the eye of the storm. Reports suggest Ben's first instinct, even in custody, was to reassure his family. "Tell Annie I'm okay," he was overheard saying. "Tell the boys I love them." For a man who spent his career putting others at ease, those words were no surprise. Even in his darkest moment, his priority was family. And it was that bond, between husband and wife, between father and son, that would become the bedrock of strength.
The much-loved presenter, known for his warmth on Good Morning Britain and Tipping Point, found himself caught in an extraordinary storm. Instead of blowing out candles surrounded by his wife Annie, their sons, and close friends, Ben was suddenly thrust into the kind of drama usually reserved for the quiz shows he hosts. But this was no game. This was no carefully planned segment for television. This was real life, and it was happening on Ben's birthday. The very idea that such a respected figure, a man admired for his kindness, humility, and professionalism, could be embroiled in such a shocking situation left fans stunned. Social media, so quick to pounce on headlines, lit up within minutes. Twitter feeds filled with disbelief. Facebook threads overflowed with questions. And across the UK, viewers who had grown up with Ben's reassuring smile on their screens asked themselves the same thing. How could this happen? And why today, of all days? Witnesses described the scene as surreal. Ben, usually calm, measured, the steady hand who comforts contestants in their most nerve-wracking moments, looked visibly shaken. Cameras flashed, journalists scrambled, headlines erupted like wildfire. And at the heart of it all, one woman's reaction became the story within the story. Annie Shephard, Ben's wife, his anchor, the woman who has stood quietly by his side for decades, suddenly found herself in the glare of a spotlight she never sought. Known for her grace and quiet strength, Annie's response was a blend of heartbreak and resolve. Those close to her described moments where her composure cracked, where her eyes filled with tears. Yet in the very next breath, they saw a woman fiercely protective of her husband, unwilling to let his name, his integrity, or his character be dragged through the mud. And that, perhaps, is where this story takes on a life of its own. Because Annie Shephard wasn't about to sit quietly. She wasn't about to watch from the sidelines. Instead, she rose, with quiet dignity, to fight for the man she has loved since they were teenagers. But what came next would shake not just a family, but a nation.